Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. First of all, if you haven't checked out my previous video, make sure you do right at the end of this one as they go hand in hand with each other regarding NHL free agency. So I'll have a link right down here below at the end of this video for you to check it out if you haven't already. But talking about in part of what I previously touched on in my last video, there's been plenty of uncertainty this season for the NHL as if it's going to resume or if it's just going to go to playoffs, whatever it may be, as the ongoing pandemic has continued to have the NHL and other major sports leagues throughout all the globe on pause, like I said, due to the pandemic. But with all those things being said, how is this affecting NHL free agency? Well, to start off, it's most likely not going to start in July. It will probably happen later in the year if I had to guess, some point in the summer, hopefully, but really, who knows? I honestly don't know yet. It all goes in part as to if the NHL is going to pick up this season or playoffs at some point this year. But with all those things being said, how is it going to affect these players, especially that are most likely going to hit the free agent market? Well, it starts off with the cap. And when it comes to the salary cap this year, there was speculation originally that it was going to rise between, say, $1 million or even upwards of $4 or $5 million going into next season. But from recent reports that I've seen have said otherwise, showing that the cap may stay the same or even lower. And if it drops, that is going to be crucial to some of the bigger fish in free agency at the season's end when it comes to the kind of deal that they'll sign, whether it be short or long term. And that, of course, will mean that if they player like, say, Taylor Hall, for example, signs a shorter term deal, like a bridge deal between 1 and 3 years, they're doing that assuming that over the next couple seasons, the cap is going to rise and they will most likely stay in their prime by then. So once that short contract is up, they will then hit free agency again and get a bigger payday than what they would have this summer or fall, whatever it may be, whenever free agency is going to start. But that's going to be crucial too, so I just want to throw that out there because there is plenty of uncertainty when it comes to the free agents and the decisions that they'll make, because of course they are going to base it off of the salary cap. You have to have those two together. So starting off, who are the bigger names in free agency? You, of course, have Taylor Hall, who is set to be a UFA at the season's end. Same thing with the two studs from Florida, whether it be Evgeny Danilov and Mike Hoffman, and then, of course, Tyler Toffoli for the Vancouver Canucks. And then other names you could list that are going to hit free agency as forwards, but I'm really not going to touch on much because I want to focus on the top four, are guys like Mikael Granlund, Jesper Fast, Eric Haula, Craig Smith, Josh Levo, Derek Brassard, Carl Soderberg, and Vladislav Nemestikov, and Alex Galchenyuk. So there are plenty of guys there. I could really break down them, but I'm not going to do that yet. I just want to focus on the top four. So starting off with Tyler Toffoli. Toffoli's 28 years old. He's split time this season between the LA Kings and the Canucks. And since being acquired by the Canucks, he has really done a good job for them, which leads me to believe there's a possibility of him re-signing with the Canucks at the season's end. He has really done a good job, and he currently has a cap hit of $4.6 million, but I expect that to rise between $5.5 and $6 million, especially if he hits free agency, because he has really done a good job with the Canucks. But I really hope that for the Canucks' sake that they consider re-signing him at the season's end. But going into it, Toffoli in 68 games played has 24 goals, 20 assists for 44 points, and a plus-minus of -1. Not bad at all, and his career high in points was 58 back in the 15-16 season with the Kings. And he does play both sides, whether it be left or right wing. He will do it all for you. And he contributes on the power play, of course, as well as being in your top 6, top 9. And I fully expect the Canucks to really consider re-signing him. I hope they do for his case. But I will break down, after I list the other players, where I could possibly see him landing if the Canucks choose to let him walk. Next, of course, you have Evgeny Danilov. Danilov has been a very reliable scorer playmaker overall for the Florida Panthers since signing with them coming from the KHL just a couple years ago. And since being back with the Panthers after originally being drafted by them quite a while ago, he has done fantastic. But this season has been quite a little bit of a dip comparing to him having 70 points as his career high last season. This year, in 69 games played, he has 25 goals, 22 assists for 47 points, and a plus-minus of -7. Not bad at all, but it is still a little bit of a drop-off comparing to last season, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he is missing 10-plus games due to the pause for the season. But when it comes to Dadonov, he is 31 years old, so I bet that will shy away some suitors in the free agent market. I fully expect either him or Hoffman or both to walk in free agency and not re-sign with the Panthers. I'm sure the Panthers will probably try to keep Hoffman between the two, given the fact that Hoffman is younger and has played better when it comes to the goal scoring front. But they do both struggle defensively at times. But Dadonov is still a very reliable player for the Florida Panthers and will be for whatever team he would sign for if it won't be the Panthers at the season's end. He has a current cap at $4 million, and I expect that to rise from 6.5 to $7 million for his new contract, wherever that may be. Now, when it comes to Mike Hoffman, he's 30 years old, but unlike Dadonov, he has been in the NHL his whole career. He wasn't in the KHL, obviously, and he has had 6 straight seasons with at least 20 goals, which is pretty impressive. He's been one of the better goal scorers in all the NHL since becoming an NHL regular. Now, while there has been some controversy with him in the past between him and his wife and Erik Karlsson with the Senators, which was a not great situation that led to him being traded by the Senators, but since being acquired by the Panthers, he has been fantastic for them, 5-on-5 and power play. And in 69 games played this year, he has 29 goals, 30 assists for 59 points, and a plus-minus of -5. And his career high was 70 points last season as well. Hoffman, the 30-year-old winger, plays right and left wing, either one, and has a cap hit of roughly $2 million, and I expect him to have a significant increase between 6.5 to $8 million, whatever it may be, especially if he hits the market. But I expect a lot of suitors for Hoffman, and I don't see how the Panthers will be able to keep both of them. Maybe even one might be difficult. It depends, because I have seen reports that their ownership may consider cutting funding for the organization, so that will definitely dictate the kind of money that they have for their roster. But we'll see what happens there. But of course, you have Taylor Hall now as the most coveted forward that is set to hit free agency, and I don't expect him to re-sign with the Arizona Coyotes. I know I've seen reports of him saying how he wants to play with a contender and that the destination doesn't really mean too much for him as long as he's playing for a team that will ultimately give him a strong chance at winning the Stanley Cup. Hall this season, though, in 65 games played, has 16 goals, 36 assists for 52 points, and a plus-minus of -14. Those stats aren't bad at all, especially splitting time between the Devils and the Coyotes, as he was acquired by the Coyotes earlier in the season, as he was traded from the Devils way before the trade deadline, though. But he has a career high of 93 points in the 17-18 season. That was his Hart Trophy winning season with the Devils. And while he did not even get remotely close to that this season, this was his first season back from a crucial injury. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him going forward as he continues to get healthier, and if the point production, the goal scoring especially, will be higher, whether it be with Arizona or another team. But the 28-year-old winger, who's a left winger and will play center as well, has a current cap at $6 million, and I fully expect that to rise to at least 9.5 to 11 mil, all depending on the term, especially for the team that he ends up signing with. But when it comes to all these players, who are they going to sign for, or will they stay with their current teams? Well, when it comes to almost all of them, I fully expect them to hit the market. I think Tyler Toffoli is the most likely to stay with their current team. I think he's gelled really well with the Canucks, and I hope that for both parties' cases that they figure out a deal to keep him going forward. But when it comes to Toffoli, I fully expect the Canucks to try to keep him, but they do have to deal with re-signing Jacob Markstrom if they wish to keep him still. And then you have other guys, whether it be Levo, and then you have Chris Tanev, who I don't see why they would want to re-sign him. Tanev has a cap hit of close to, if not more than, $5 million, so that would be an easy contract to get rid of. And Elias Pettersson has 2 years left on his RFA contract, so I'm sure they're already worried about re-signing him to a long-term deal. So we'll see what happens there, but expect Toffoli to get some traction with the Canucks in hopes of re-signing. If not, I expect the Sabres and the Penguins to be in on him. The Sabres make a lot of sense because they have cap space, they need depth scoring, and having a guy like Toffoli in their top 6 would really do a great job for them. And the Penguins make sense too because they always look for those depth forwards every single season, and while they have a pretty good roster on paper right now, they do deal with plenty of injuries, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see to fully get some interest from the Pittsburgh Penguins. But when it comes to Danov is one of those that I think is pretty much on his way out when it comes to the Panthers. I don't think they're going to re-sign him, in my opinion, and I expect suitors for him to be the guy, teams like the Columbus Blue Jackets, as they without question need scoring, and they still aren't a bad team even with all the guys they lost last free agency. Bringing in a guy like Danov would definitely help them with a group between a younger mix of rookie or first, second year forwards, and of course see more grizzled veterans on the team. I think he would be a great fit for them, along with other teams like the Devils, who of course will be looking to add some scoring as they have plenty of cap, and I don't see Taylor Hall going back to the Devils. So a guy like Danov would make a lot of sense to me to fit in that top six and really get a lot of the workload as they continue this kind of retool, rebuild, whatever you may call it. And then other teams that may consider the Penguins, I can fully see possibly considering him, but I wouldn't really expect too much out of that. The Islanders would make a lot of sense for me, as they will love more goal scoring, especially with the woes that they have had in years prior. And like I said, the Devils would make sense too. So expect those two Metro teams to possibly in it for Danov, assuming he doesn't re-sign with the Panthers. But when it comes to Mike Hoffman, I could see possibly staying with the Panthers. I could see them definitely committing to him over Danov, even though it is a year and age difference. But Hoffman is the faster skater, and while he may not be as defensively sound at times, he knows how to put the puck behind the net and is a better overall goal scorer than Danov, that's for sure. So we'll see what happens when it comes with him staying with the Panthers. But if he doesn't, I expect a couple teams, especially the Predators, would make a lot of sense for me to consider signing him if they don't re-sign Granlund, and I don't know why they would. Hoffman would make a lot of sense, add scoring to that team that really has been needing it, with plenty of guys who have had down years overall this season. And then you have other teams like the Pens. The Pens are a little bit more far-fetched in my opinion, just because of the cap hit that would take to get Hoffman, but they are always a possibility when it comes to forwards. And the Edmonton Oilers would make perfect sense, as they need plenty of depth when it comes to their forward group. It looks a lot better after the trade deadline, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them add a guy like Hoffman, who would really fit nicely, whether it be alongside Draisaitl or McDavid in that top six. That would add a crucial weapon, a 30-goal scorer for them that would really be able to pick up the pace alongside guys like Connor McDavid. But as I get to Taylor Hall now, I don't expect to be with the Arizona Coyotes at the season's end. I think he's going to walk and take a big contract or a bridge deal, we'll see, with one of the following teams. The Montreal Canadiens seem like a very likely fit, but nothing is 100%. The Canadiens, of course, would make a lot of sense, not just with cap hit, but with really needing that guy, that number one scorer, and Hall would provide that and then some. He would be perfect in their mix of younger and middle-aged forwards as they continue to develop, and it doesn't look like they are going to be doing a rebuild, but they do some type of retool. I could expect Hall to be a part of it, but it all comes down to if Hall is willing to be there if they aren't playoff contenders as soon as next season, and I don't know if he is. But other teams like the Colorado Avalanche probably make the most sense as they have the cap. They are a contender when it comes to the Stanley Cup, and that checks off all the boxes for Taylor Hall. He would get plenty of playing time. That team would be absolutely ridiculous when it comes to depth on the offensive front, and they would easily be one of, if not the best team in the NHL then. And then, of course, you have other teams like the Islanders would make sense, but I don't see how he would go the Islanders. But it is a possibility, of course, as they are looking for depth. I fully expect Lou Lamoriello to really try to make big splashes in the offseason, like he did last year with trying to acquire Artemi Panarin. The fact that he was just so aggressive in acquiring Panarin leads me to believe he may very well do the same with a guy like Taylor Hall. And then, of course, you have other teams, whether it be the Calgary Flames, that could use some better scoring, but that seems more unlikely. The Panthers are a possibility if they don't sign both of Danov and Hoffman. That would be pretty crazy if they didn't sign either of them, but instead Braun and Hall. But I don't see that happening either. But I do see them as a team that would definitely be interested. But realistically, I don't see how Hall would want to go to Florida, because I don't see them as a big cup contender, especially next season. And the last team I have been interested in Hall is the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers would be really sneaky in coming in to acquire Hall. Who knows, maybe Hall would want to possibly redeem his time that he had with the Edmonton Oilers in the past and really fix everything that led to the falling out in the past, as they have better management now along with Ken Holland. Dave Tippett, a really good head coach who I've been a fan of for a while now, since when he was first starting off with the Coyotes, and overall I feel he would be a fantastic fit alongside McDavid, especially. That would be absolutely ridiculous. So we'll see what happens. They would of course have to move some things around, move some contracts for the Oilers in order to make that happen, but look out for the Oilers because I expect them to kind of be in talks with Hall at the season's end. I think that there is a little bit more to it. I don't think that that relationship is completely buried, so just don't be too surprised if they inquire on him. But that is going to conclude this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you agree or disagree with me on my thoughts, let me know where you think these players are going to go, especially these top 4. And like I said, if you haven't checked out previous videos, please make sure you do right over here. And with all those things being said, thank you again so much, and I'll be back in a day or two.